Draw near, kindred spirits, to the fireside of threads of Infinity Unraveled, a story kindled and nurtured by the creative flames of StoryWave.ai. Warm your souls with us by liking, sharing, and subscribing for more heartwarming tales. Chapter 1, The Spark of Genius. Mad Max, at it again? The voice cut through the drone of machinery. Sofia Ramirez, my neighbor, leaned against the doorframe. Her eyes, sharp as her wit, scanned my contraption. Spark, as I like to call her, had that engineer's knack for unraveling the mysteries of tech with a mere glance. "Hey, Spark," I said, flashing a grin. "Just about to test the latest iteration. This baby might just let us peek into other worlds." She raised an eyebrow, the circuit board tattoo on her forearm catching the light as she crossed her arms. "And you're sure it's safe? I've seen enough of your tests to know they can be explosive." I chuckled, adjusting the peculiar amulet I always wore, a good luck charm of sorts. What's life without a bit of risk? Besides, this time I've accounted for every variable. It's stable, I think. Sophia rolled her eyes but couldn't hide the intrigued sparkle in her hazel gaze. She pushed off from the doorframe and approached, her curiosity overcoming caution. "Show me then. How's this contraption supposed to unlock doors to the cosmos?" I took a deep breath, detailing the ins and outs of my device. It was all about harnessing electromagnetism, bending it in ways that conventional physics would balk at. I spoke of coils and capacitors, of the delicate interplay between energy and matter. Sophia listened, her engineer's mind dissecting my every word. With a dramatic flourish, I flipped the switch. The machine whirred to life, and for a moment, all was as it should be, a symphony of science at the brink of history. But then, a sizzle, a pop, and reality itself seemed to stutter. "Max, what's happening?" Sophia's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her alarm. I had no answer. A blinding light enveloped us, the workshop, my beloved mess of inventions, all of it swallowed by an impossible brightness. And then darkness. When my senses returned, Sophia and I were no longer in my workshop. We stood in a place that defied explanation. It was an endless expanse, where the laws of physics were mere suggestions. Colors unseen by human eyes swirled in the ether, and the ground beneath our feet hummed with the energy of 1,000 suns. We were somewhere else, another universe, perhaps. The device had worked, but at what cost? The workshop, my home, Earth, were they now out of reach? Sophia turned to me, her engineer's mind already working overtime. "Max, if we're going to get back, we need to understand this place. And we need to understand that," she said, pointing at the still glowing device in my hand. I nodded, the weight of our predicament settling on my shoulders. "Let's get to work then. We've got a universe to figure out and a way home to find." As the first chapter of our odyssey unfolded, I couldn't help but wonder if this spark of genius would be the light that guided us home or the fire that consumed us. Only time and the infinite threads of possibility would tell. Chapter 2, Quantum Trespassers. "Max, this is unbelievable," Sophia murmured, her gaze locked on a herd of massive beasts grazing in the distance, their long necks reaching for the tops of ancient trees. I nodded, still clutching the device that had hurled us into this prehistoric chaos. "We have to be careful, Spark. These creatures won't hesitate to make us their next meal if we're not smart about this." A sudden roar pierced the air, a sound so primal and ferocious it sent a shiver down my spine. We turned to see a colossal predator, its eyes fixed on us. Its teeth, sharp as knives, promised a swift end. "Run!" I shouted, and without hesitation we bolted, darting through the dense foliage. The ground shook as the beast gave chase, its roars a constant reminder of the peril on our heels. As we ran, Sophia called out, "Max, we need a plan. The device!" I yelled back, my mind racing as fast as my legs. If I can recalibrate it on the move, we might just jump out of this frying pan. We zigzagged, narrowly avoiding snapping jaws and thrashing tails, the air filled with the scents of earth and fear. I fumbled with the device, my fingers working with a desperate speed. Just as the beast was about to close the gap, the world around us blurred into a kaleidoscope of colors. The sensation of weightlessness enveloped us, and then, as suddenly as it had begun, the chase was over. We stumbled into a new reality, the air tinged with the scent of incense and the sound of distant chimes. Before us stood a grand palace, its architecture a blend of the ancient and the futuristic, spires reaching for the heavens. The locals, draped in garments that shimmered like liquid metal, stopped and stared. One figure stepped forward, his eyes widening in disbelief. "The lost emperor has returned," he exclaimed, dropping to one knee. I exchanged a frantic look with Sophia. "Max, what's happening?" she whispered. I was about to answer when the crowd erupted into cheers, their voices melding into a chant that filled the air. "Long live the Emperor!" Sophia grabbed my arm, her eyes serious. "We need to talk, Max. This is getting out of hand." We found a quiet corner amidst the commotion, the murmurs of rebellion and hope echoing around us. "Max, this mistaken identity could be our ticket," Sophia said, her mind already turning gears. "But we have to be smart. We can't let this go too far." I nodded, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "We'll use this to our advantage, Spark. Get the information we need. Find a way back to the workshop, to our own world." As the crowd surged around us, their faces alight with fervor for a leader they thought they knew, I realized that this journey through the threads of infinity would test every ounce of our cunning and resolve. But together, we would navigate the chaos, seeking the path that would lead us home. Chapter 3, Through the Looking Glass. Sophia was hot on my heels, her mind no doubt racing to find a solution just as feverishly as mine. We were quantum outlaws, running from the self-appointed guardians of the multiverse's borders, and the gravity of my invention's implications was hitting me like a ton of bricks. "Max, left up here." Sophia's voice cut through the tension. I veered left, trusting her instinct. We skidded into an alcove, barely a whisper between us and our relentless trackers. I could hear their stern voices, their words clipped and authoritative, discussing strategies to corner us. Sophia glanced at me, her eyes intense. "We can't keep running in circles, Max. We need a plan." I nodded, clutching the device. "I've been thinking." The device, it's not just a key to doorways between worlds. It's a compass, a map. We've been thinking too small. She tilted her head, considering. "You mean to use it to navigate, not just to escape?" "Exactly," I confirmed. "We need to understand its language, the patterns. It's more than a random generator. It's a sophisticated instrument of travel." As we talked, the device in my hand pulsed, its core lighting up with a sequence of symbols that seemed vaguely familiar. My pulse quickened with the realization that we might just have a way out. Sophia peered at the glowing glyphs. "These symbols, they're similar to constellations, astronomical alignments." "Max, this could be our breakthrough." Our excitement was short-lived, however, as the sound of our chasers grew louder, their footfalls more determined. We were running out of time. With a surge of desperation, I focused on the device, aligning the symbols with my intentions. The air around us began to buzz with potential energy, the very fabric of reality stretching thin. "Now, Max," Sophia urged. I activated the device, and the world dissolved into a vortex of light and sound. We were no longer in the labyrinth of mirrors, but standing on the edge of a city under siege, massive ships looming in the sky, firing beams of destruction onto the world below. Sophia and I exchanged a look of horror. "An alien invasion," she breathed. "This isn't home, but it's a step in our journey," I said, my determination hardening. "We'll learn what we can, help if we're able, and find our way back." She nodded, her gaze scanning the chaos. "We'll need to be careful, Max. These beings, the technology they possess, it's beyond anything we've seen." I agreed, and together, we moved cautiously into the ravaged city, our senses alert. The device had brought us here for a reason, and I was determined to unravel its secrets, to master its capabilities, and to pursue the greatness of discovery that lay just beyond the next leap through the looking glass. Chapter 4, Echoes of Home. "Max, this place," she started, her voice a whisper of awe. "It's like we never left." I nodded, taking in the almost home that surrounded us. The buildings stood tall and proud, the trees swayed in a gentle breeze that carried the distant sound of laughter and life. But it was the people, the passers-by, who shared our features but not our stories, that truly underscored the strangeness of this dimension. As we walked, we stumbled upon figures that were unmistakably us, yet not us. My double strode past, a confident smile on his face, while Sophia's counterpart laughed heartily with friends. For a moment we stood there, transfixed by the echoes of lives we could have led. The temptation to blend into this near-perfect facsimile of our existence gnawed at me. Here, we could be free of the chase, the fear, the uncertainty. But the amulet around my neck, a constant reminder of the real home, pulled at me with an invisible force. Sophia broke the silence. Max, we could stay. No one would know. We could have lives here, lives without running. I turned to her, the conflict clear in her hazel eyes. But it wouldn't be our lives, Spark. Not really. It's like reading someone else's story and pretending it's yours. We found a quiet park, the greenery a soothing balm, and sat on a bench that could have been our own in another time, another place. The conversation that followed was long and meandering, a river of words and thoughts that ran deep. Look at them, Sophia gestured to the people around us. They're us, but with all the pieces fitting together. Don't you ever wonder, what if? I sighed, watching a child chase a fluttering butterfly, a scene so normal it ached. Every day. But wondering what if won't get us home. This, I said, holding up the device, is our ticket back to where we belong, and I believe we can find it. Sophia leaned back, her eyes scanning the sky as if searching for answers among the drifting clouds. Home. It's funny how that word feels so heavy now. But you're right, Max. This place isn't ours. We need to keep looking for the way back. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues over the almost home around us, the weight of our decisions settled in. We stood, our fortitude solidifying with each step we took away from the park, from the doppelgangers, from the life that could have been. The device pulsed in my hand, a lighthouse of hope amidst the sea of uncertainty. We were travelers, explorers, seekers of the path that would lead us through the threads of infinity, back to the place where our hearts truly lay. And with every leap, every world we encountered, our determination to find home only grew stronger. Chapter 1. The Spark of Discovery. I stepped back, my gaze lingering on the device's centerpiece, a silver ring, large enough for a man to step through, suspended by a lattice of gleaming conduits. My fingers grazed the custom silver pendant always around my neck, a talisman of sorts, as I prepared for the initial test. All right, here goes nothing, I muttered, and with a deep breath, I initiated the sequence. Lights flickered overhead as the power surged, the device awakening with a symphony of whirs and clicks. My heart raced, not just with the fear of failure, but the dread of the unknown. This moment was the razor's edge between obscurity and the saga of history. Suddenly, the ring erupted with brilliant light, casting elongated shadows that danced across the cluttered walls lined with bookshelves and scattered tools. I shielded my eyes, peeking through my fingers as the light condensed into a swirling vortex within the ring, a portal aglow with hues of azure and emerald. This is it, the spark of discovery, I whispered to myself. But as I reached out, yearning to touch the swirling cosmos, the device shuddered violently. A din of alarms blared, the sound drilling into my ears as warning lights painted the room in strokes of angry red. I lunged for the control panel, but it was too late. A force, unseen and unfathomable, gripped me, pulling me towards the unstable gateway. With a cry lost in the roar of colliding dimensions, I was hurtled through the wormhole. Vision blurred, a sense of vertigo enveloped me, time and space melding together. When the world finally came back into focus, I was lying on a bed of soft, alien foliage, the air thick with humidity and buzzing with life. I stood, my mind reeling, trying to process the reality that I was no longer in my lab, or even my world. Towering trees with bizarre, twisting limbs stretched into a sky painted with unfamiliar constellations. In the distance, a guttural roar reverberated, and I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet. Dinosaurs. Living, breathing behemoths, just as I had read about in childhood books, now roamed before my very eyes. A sense of awe washed over me, mixed with the biting sting of fear. Okay, Max, I coached myself. You're not in Kansas anymore. My thoughts were interrupted by a rustling nearby. I turned to see a creature, its scales shimmering in the dappled sunlight, eyeing me with a predator's gaze. It was a smaller dinosaur, but the sharpness of its teeth left no doubt of its carnivorous appetites. Heart pounding, I slowly backed away, but the creature mirrored my movements, its eyes locked on mine. I needed a plan, and fast. As I calculated my next move, a flicker in the corner of my eye caught my attention. Figures, obscured by the foliage, moved with purpose and intent. They were not of this prehistoric world. Their presence was incongruous, like oil in water. They were the shadowy figures my device had inadvertently signaled, and they were closing in. My mind raced, considering the implications. Had others been working on similar technology? Was I now the quarry in a hunt that spanned worlds? With the dinosaur inching closer and the mysterious figures drawing near, I realized I was caught in the eye of a storm I had unwittingly unleashed. My only ally in this moment was the wormhole device still strapped to my back, its lights dimmed but not dead. Summoning every ounce of courage, I reached for the device, my fingers dancing over the buttons and dials, willing it back to life. The dinosaur lunged just as the figures emerged from the shadows, their intentions written in their swift movements. The device hummed, a faint glimmer of hope reigniting within its circuits. With a defiant cry, I activated it once more, and the world dissolved into the blinding light of a new leap through the threads of infinity. As I tumbled through the void between worlds, my mind clung to a singular thought, that my journey was only just beginning, and the path home was woven with dangers and wonders beyond my wildest imaginings. Chapter 2: The Reluctant Travelers. The sound of heavy boots thundering down the stairs snapped me to attention. Victor Kane's mercenaries, relentless hunters, had tracked me to my sanctuary. My mind raced. I needed a plan, and fast. Zara, with her fiery mane and robotic arm that spoke of her engineering prowess, stood by the workbench, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Max, what in the name of Newton just happened?" she demanded, her raspy voice betraying a hint of wonder beneath the shock. "Later, Z," I called out, grabbing her arm. "We've got company, and they're not here to chat." She followed my gaze to the stairs, and her posture shifted from curious to battle-ready in an instant. "We can't stay here," she said, a note of purposefulness cutting through the tension. I nodded, and we dashed to the back of the lab, where the wormhole device lay discarded. My hands shook as I recalibrated the settings, the mercenaries' footsteps growing ever louder. Zara watched my back, her eyes scanning for any sign of the intruders. "Got it!" I exclaimed as the device hummed to life. I slung it over my shoulder, and the familiar glow of the portal sprung forth. Zara's eyes met mine, an unspoken agreement passing between us. There was no choice now. She was part of this chase, whether she liked it or not. She took a deep breath, her athletic build tensing for action. "Do it," she said, with a nod. As we leaped through the portal, reality warped around us. We emerged into a world of chaos and ruin. Buildings lay crumbled, their steel bones twisted and exposed. The sky was choked with smoke, and the distant sound of artillery fire rumbled like an angry earth. "Where are we?" Zara asked, her voice edged with a wary awe. "A world torn by war," I replied, scanning the horizon. "A dystopia, another thread of the countless that weave through the multiverse." We didn't have time to ponder the desolation around us. Sounds of pursuit signaled that Kane's men had followed us through the portal. We ran, ducking through the debris-strewn streets, the air thick with the acrid tang of destruction. "This isn't your fight, Zara," I panted as we dodged a fallen lamppost. "I dragged you into this." She shot me a glance, fierce and unyielding. "I'm here, aren't I?" We keep moving, Max. Our flight took us to the edge of a decaying plaza, where a statue of some long-forgotten hero stood, arm outstretched, pointing to a future that never came. We hid behind its base, catching our breath, the mercenaries' voices growing distant as they searched. "We can't keep running forever," Zara said, her blue eyes reflecting the flames that danced in the broken skyline. "We need a plan." I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. "We jump again," I said, my grip on the device tightening. "But we need to be smarter, strategic. Every leap we take, every action, it ripples through the multiverse. We've seen it already. We have to think about the consequences." Zara's mechanical arm whirred softly as she flexed her fingers. "Then let's make sure our next step is the right one." We peered around the statue's bulk, the mercenaries now mere ghosts in the war-torn landscape. With a final look at the dystopian world that had been our brief refuge, we activated the device once more. As the portal spiraled open, we stepped through, vanishing from the world of ruin, leaving behind a chapter in a saga that twisted and turned through the fabric of reality itself. Chapter 3: The Wormhole Device. I cleared a space on the workbench, moving aside a tangle of wires and scattered blueprints. "This is it, Ellie," I began, the weight of my creation heavy in my palm. "This little box of tricks is what's been causing all the trouble." She leaned in, her gaze sharpening with the curiosity of a lifelong learner. "Tell me, Max, how does it work?" she asked, her voice gentle but insistent. Taking a deep breath, I launched into an explanation, my words tumbling out with the enthusiasm of a child sharing a secret. It's all about magnetic fields, quantum entanglement, and a fair bit of luck, I explained. When activated, it creates a bridge, a shortcut through the fabric of space-time itself. Eleanor nodded, her fingers brushing against the digital notebook she always carried. And this bridge, it can take you to any point in the multiverse? Exactly, I confirmed. In theory, it's a gateway to infinite possibilities. But it's not just about where it can take you, it's about when. Time is a river, and this, I said, holding up the device, is a paddle. Her eyes held a glimmer of concern. A powerful tool, and a dangerous one. In the wrong hands. I swallowed hard, the potential for disaster a bitter taste on my tongue. I know, Ellie. That's what scares me the most. Our conversation was suddenly interrupted by the screech of tires outside. I peered through the dirty garage window to see a nondescript van skid to a halt. My heart sank. They had found us, Kane's shadowy figures. Before we could react, the garage door was kicked in, and a group of menacing figures burst in. They were swift, their movements practiced. One grabbed Eleanor while another wrestled the device from my grip. Ellie's eyes met mine, a silent message passing between us. She was scared, but there was a fire there too. She wouldn't go quietly into the unknown. Zara, who had been tinkering with her robotic arm in the corner, sprang into action, her athletic form a blur as she launched herself at our attackers. But there were too many, and they were too well prepared. With Eleanor in their grasp, the figures retreated, dragging her toward the van. I fought against the hands holding me, my mind racing. I had to save her, but I was powerless without the device. Just then, Zara, with a display of ingenuity and raw power, managed to snatch the device back, tossing it to me before a mercenary's punch sent her reeling. I caught it and, without a second thought, activated it. The familiar glow of the portal enveloped us, and Zara and I leaped through just as the garage faded from view. We landed in a place unknown, the wormhole snapping shut behind us. But there was no time to waste. We had to find Eleanor, and fast. Her abduction was more than a kidnapping. It was a message, a sign that the deeper mysteries of the multiverse were intertwined with our fates in ways we were only beginning to understand. As we set off, determined to rescue our mentor and friend, I couldn't shake the feeling that every step we took was part of a larger design, a welter of cosmic threads that we were unraveling one leap at a time. Chapter 4, The Invasion. Max, look at this, Zara said, her voice tinged with awe. She pointed to a group of people passing by, their limbs moving with uncanny fluidity thanks to sleek metallic enhancements that glistened under the alien sun. Eleanor, always the historian, observed the scene with a thoughtful frown. This society has been changed by the technology they've adopted, she noted. But at what cost to their humanity? We didn't have long to ponder her question. A holographic image flickered to life above the square, and a familiar figure appeared. It was Victor Kane, his salt and pepper hair combed back, his thick beard framing a smug grin. He was dressed in a garb that signified power, a mix of high-tech armor and regal finery that left no doubt as to his status. "People of this world," he boomed, his voice echoing through the square, "your compliance with the regulations will ensure peace and prosperity under my governance." The crowd's reaction was subdued, a collective resignation hanging in the air like a thick fog. It was clear that Kane's rule was one of suppression, the alien technology at his disposal a means to cement his control. Zara clenched her robotic fist. "We can't let this stand, Max. We've got to do something." Eleanor nodded in agreement. "The very fabric of this society is at stake. We must inspire them to reclaim their freedom." We moved through the crowd, speaking in subdued tones to those who dared to meet our gaze. "You don't have to live under his rule," I whispered to a young man with cybernetic eyes that shone with a hint of rebellion. "You can fight back." Word spread like wildfire, a spark of hope igniting in the hearts of the oppressed. A resistance formed, not with guns or violence, but with the strength of a united people ready to reclaim their autonomy. But our actions did not go unnoticed. Kane's enforcers descended upon the square, their advanced weaponry a clear threat to anyone who dared defy the ruler's will. Zara was quick on her feet, her engineering skills coming to the fore as she improvised a diversion. "This way," she shouted, leading us down a narrow alley as the enforcers gave chase. We ran, the city a labyrinth of potential traps and dead ends. Eleanor kept up, her wisdom guiding us when choices had to be made quickly. "We need to get back to the wormhole," I panted, the device secure in my grasp. As we neared our exit point, I couldn't shake the feeling that Kane's pursuit was more than just about maintaining his rule. It was personal. He was after me, after the device that allowed us to dance through the threads of the multiverse. With the enforcers closing in, we made a final dash for the wormhole. I activated the device, the portal opening with a rush of light and sound. "We'll come back for you," I promised the people of the square, their faces etched with the newfound courage we had helped to awaken. And then we leaped, the familiar pull of the wormhole enveloping us as we escaped from the world that had been shaped by alien hands, and the tyrant who sought to bend the multiverse to his will. Chapter 5. The Dinosaur World. "Max," Zara whispered, "tell me again why we're hiding from a creature that's supposed to be extinct." I glanced at the towering behemoth lumbering past, its massive tail swaying like a pendulum. "Because Z, that's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I don't fancy being its lunch." Eleanor, ever the historian, couldn't help but marvel at the scene. "To think," she murmured, "we're witnessing a world that existed millions of years before our time. It's extraordinary." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone in this ancient world. Kane's forces had pursued us through every leap, and I doubted they'd stop now. As if on cue, the crackle of a two-way radio split the silence, and we exchanged alarmed glances. They were here, and they were close. "We need to move," I said. "Now." We darted through the dense jungle, the device secured tightly to my back. Branches snagged at our clothes as we pushed on, the sounds of pursuit ever present behind us. Zara, her robotic arm whirring with each movement, was quick to take the lead. "There!" She pointed to a narrow ravine that might offer shelter. We slid down the embankment just as a roar echoed behind us. Not the T-Rex this time, but something more chilling, a hovercraft bearing Kane's insignia. "They've got tech even here?" Zara gasped, her raspy voice tinged with disbelief. Eleanor's gaze was sharp as she watched the craft hover above the tree line. "Max, there's a pattern to this madness. Each world we jump to, Kane's already there, waiting. It's like he knows." Her words hung in the air, a puzzle half solved. I adjusted the settings on the wormhole device, my fingers shaking. He's tracking us somehow. But I'll figure it out. For now, let's focus on getting out of here alive. The hovercraft's searchlight swept the jungle, inching closer to our hiding spot. I hit the activation button, and the portal spiraled open. Just then, a monstrous roar shook the earth, and the T-Rex burst into the clearing, its eyes fixed on the hovercraft. "Talk about ancient versus modern," Zara quipped, despite the peril. Without wasting a moment, we seized the distraction and jumped through the portal, the T-Rex's battle cry fading into the rush of dimensions folding around us. We landed in a new world, the device humming softly as it powered down. As we caught our breath, it was clear. Kane wasn't just chasing us, he was anticipating our moves. Our leaps weren't random, they were a sequence, and Kane had deciphered it. "We'll crack this code," I promised, meeting Eleanor's steady gaze, "and we'll put an end to this chase." Our journey through the multiverse was more than a flight. It was a challenge, a game of cosmic cat and mouse, and we were determined to stay one step ahead. Chapter 6. The Ruler. As we walked through the city, people bowed respectfully. Their faces were alight with admiration, a sight that stirred something uncomfortably like pride within me. They called me the Benevolent, and I couldn't help but feel bewildered. Here in this dimension, I was a ruler, celebrated for advancements I had no memory of making. Zara nudged me with her elbow, her robotic arm glinting in the sunlight. "Looks like you're a big deal here, Max." I gave her a wry smile. "Seems so, Z, but it's all a bit much." Eleanor observed the surroundings with a historian's eye. "It's not just the technology that's different, Max. The people here, they're living in peace. There's no sign of oppression or fear." We were ushered into a grand hall where a feast was laid out in my honor. The room buzzed with the chatter of dignitaries and scholars, all eager to speak with their version of me. A woman approached, her attire a blend of elegance and function, and extended her hand. "Max, your work has propelled us into a new era," she said with a graceful nod. The energy core you developed has ended wars, cured diseases, and unified our planet. I listened, fascinated yet uneasy. I wish I could take credit, but the Max you know isn't me. I'm just a traveler. Before she could respond, a sudden commotion stirred at the other end of the hall. A man lunged forward, a blade flashing in his grasp, aimed straight for my heart. Instinct took over, and I dodged just in time as Zara tackled him to the ground. Chaos erupted as guards swarmed in, subduing the would-be assassin. Eleanor was quick to my side, her expression grave. That man, he bore a symbol, a wolf, the same we've seen in Kane's company. My blood ran cold. Kane's influence had stretched even into this utopia. Zara, standing over the restrained man, met my gaze. We can't let him keep doing this, Max. Wherever we go, he sows discord. I nodded, determination stealing my resolve. We're going to confront him, put an end to this madness. Eleanor placed a hand on my shoulder, her voice steady. Be cautious, Max. This confrontation may have ripples we cannot foresee. I understood her warning, but I also knew that to stop running, to finally face Kane, was the only way to protect these threads of infinity from unraveling further. With the wormhole device once again in hand, I looked to my companions. Let's end this, I said. And with a final glance at the utopia that might have been, we stepped through the portal, ready to face whatever awaited us on the other side. Chapter 7: The Ethical Edge. Something's wrong here, I muttered, staring at the chaos that was unfurling before us. The streets were filled with panicked citizens, running from ripples of reality that warped and buckled around them. Zara, with eyes as sharp as her wit, scanned the pandemonium. Looks like someone's been playing with a toy they don't understand, she said, her voice steady despite the bedlam. Eleanor, who always found a way to anchor us to history, clutched an old leather-bound book to her chest. I've seen this before, in the texts, she said, her voice a calm in the storm. A prophecy of worlds torn asunder by the misuse of powers not meant for mortals. We had to act fast. The very fabric of this dimension was coming apart at the seams, a shuffle frayed by the overzealous use of wormhole technology. Max, we can't just stand by, Zara urged, her mechanical arm clicking as she flexed it, ready for action. I nodded, feeling the weight of my responsibility like a yoke around my neck. You're right. Let's find the source and shut it down. We navigated through the city, dodging the pockets of distortion that threatened to swallow us whole. As we moved, I explained the delicate balance of the multiverse, how each world was connected by invisible threads that my device could manipulate. But when used recklessly, I concluded, it can unravel everything. We found the source of the disaster in the heart of the city, a monstrous version of my own creation, its silver ring corrupted by the touch of greed. It was clear that this world's Max had not considered the consequences of his actions. We need to deactivate it, I said, my voice firm with resolve. Zara and I approached the mishandled machine, while Eleanor consulted the ancient prophecy, her eyes racing across the aged pages. There's a way to seal the rifts, she announced, but it requires a precise sequence, a harmony of energies. Working together, Zara and I manipulated the device, while Eleanor guided us with the wisdom of the ancients. The ground shook, and the sky screamed as reality bent under our efforts. It's stabilizing, Zara shouted over the din, her robotic arm a blur of motion. With a final concerted effort, the distortions ceased and the city fell eerily silent. The sky cleared, and the citizens emerged from their hiding places, their expressions a mixture of awe and gratitude. As they thanked us, Eleanor shared her discovery. This prophecy speaks of guardians, those who will stand at the edge of chaos and pull the worlds back from the brink. I looked at my companions, at the device in my hands, and I knew that we were those guardians. We had intervened not just to save this world, but to preserve the integrity of all worlds. With the prophecy as our guide, and the lessons of this day etched into our souls, we stepped back through the portal, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in our journey through the threads of infinity. Chapter 8: The Dimension of Shadows. Something's off here, Zara said, her eyes scanning the dimly lit streets. It's like looking into a tarnished mirror. Eleanor, clutching her digital notebook close, nodded. It's as if this world is a reflection, a dark echo of another reality. We ventured deeper into the shadowy city, the silence around us so profound it felt like another presence. That's when we saw them, our doubles, but not as we knew ourselves. They were sinister, their features twisted by malevolence, a dark parody of our own. The doppelganger that mirrored me stepped forward, a wicked grin on his face. "Max, or should I say, the other Max, welcome to our world," he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "Why are you like this?" I asked, my voice steady despite the churning in my gut. "What happened to make you so powerful? Unburdened by morality?" He interrupted, his green eyes glinting. "We embrace the full potential of your little toy." He gestured to the device on his hip, a sinister twin to my own. Zara's counterpart was a mirror of athleticism and confidence, yet her robotic arm was weaponized, bristling with dangerous tech. "You're soft," she taunted, afraid to push the limits. Eleanor's double was the most unsettling, her wisdom replaced with cunning, her nurturing demeanor twisted into manipulation. "Knowledge is power," she hissed, "and power is everything." Kane's shadow loomed over us, a suggestion that he was the puppeteer, pulling at the strings of this corrupted world. It was a chilling reminder of the potential havoc my invention could wreak if left unchecked. "We're not like you," I said firmly, addressing my double. "We won't let fear or ambition turn us into monsters." The doppelgangers circled us, a deadly dance of intellect and intent. It was a battle of wits, each of us trying to outmaneuver our shadow selves. Zara's mechanical fingers twitched, itching for a fight, but she held back, her blue eyes locked on her menacing twin. "We're better than this," she declared. "Our strength doesn't come from domination. It comes from our bonds, our unity." Eleanor, ever the historian, looked past her double's malevolence. "There's more to the story of the wormhole device," she said, her voice calm. "I've seen hints of its origin, a legacy that transcends dimensions. The truth hung in the air, a revelation that the wormhole technology was not merely scientific innovation, but part of a larger stew of existence, woven through the fabric of the multiverse. As the confrontation reached its peak, the city around us began to shudder, the very shadows rebelling against the darkness that had consumed them. With a decisive act, I activated the wormhole device, the portal opening with a blinding light that cut through the gloom. "We choose a different path," I said, stepping back toward the portal, one of hope, not despair. With that, Zara, Eleanor, and I leaped through the portal, leaving behind the twisted reflections of ourselves. The battle was not with fists or weapons, but with the will to remain true to ourselves, to the better nature that each of us carried within. As we landed in a new dimension, the knowledge of the wormhole device's deeper origins settled within us. Its power was not just to travel, but to reveal the myriad possibilities of who we could become, for better or for worse. Chapter 9, The Moral Compass. It was Zara who broke the silence, her voice cutting through the heavy air. "We've jumped from place to place, chasing the tale of going home. But look at what we leave behind. Tumbled worlds, troubled folks." Her words hung between us, a stark reminder of the trail of unintended consequences that followed in the wake of our leaps through the cosmos. Eleanor, her eyes a well of wisdom, nodded. "We tread a fine line, balancing our desire to return with the responsibility we hold to those whose worlds we touch." The hum of the air grew into a voice, as if the universe itself had decided to join our deliberation. "Travelers of the wormhole, why do you journey so recklessly through the fabric of existence? Before us materialized an entity, its form ephemeral and shifting, a being of light and knowledge that seemed to pierce the very core of our beings. We seek our way back," I replied, my voice firm yet questioning. "Our home, our place. But your point is taken. We didn't mean to stir up such storms. The being's presence was overwhelming, its gaze holding the depth of infinity. Your actions ripple across the multiverse. Can you claim ignorance as your shield?" Zara stepped forward, her red hair a fiery contrast to the tranquil ambience around us. "We never meant harm," she said, her blue eyes reflecting a turmoil I had not seen before. "But I'm starting to think maybe my past isn't what I remember. Maybe there's more to why I'm here." Eleanor interjected, her tone firm yet nurturing. "We must consider the impact of our journey. If we are to continue, it must be with a clear moral compass, guided by the good we can do, not just the path we seek." The entity regarded us with a gaze that seemed to stretch beyond time. "Then choose your next steps with care, for each world you touch is a life you change. What will be your legacy, travelers?" The question lingered, a challenge that echoed in our hearts. As the entity faded, leaving us once again in the quiet of the crossroads, we knew that our journey was about more than finding home. It was about understanding the power we wielded and using it to weave a path of harmony, not havoc. With renewed resolve, we readied ourselves for the next leap. The wormhole device in my hands, no longer just a means of travel, but a tool that required wisdom and discernment in its use. As we stepped through the gateway that opened before us, we carried not just the hope of homecoming, but a commitment to be guardians of the threads of infinity, ensuring that with each step, we left a trail of light, not shadows. Chapter 10, The Ultimate Sacrifice. Zara, her athletic frame perched on a boulder, turned to me, her face etched with conflict. "So Max, this is it? We just give it all up? Just like that?" I shook my head, the weight of our predicament bearing down on me. "It's not that simple, Z. If what we've been told is true, our lives could save this entire world, maybe more." Eleanor, standing with the wisdom of her years wrapped around her like a shawl, gazed out across the verdant expanse before us. "Our journey has always been a hodgepodge of choices," she mused, her voice carrying a tremor that spoke of the gravity of our situation. "But this is the thread that could unravel everything or weave a new beginning." A leader among the people of this dimension, a man of solemn countenance named Alaric, joined our quiet congregation. "You've seen the prophecy," he said, his voice resonant with the authority of one who has long borne heavy burdens. "The end is nigh, unless the travelers from beyond make the ultimate sacrifice." Zara leaped down from her perch, approaching Alaric with a determined stride. "And if we do this, if we lay down our lives, what's to say it'll work? What's to say it's not all for nothing?" Alaric's eyes, dark and deep as a starless night, met hers. "There is no certainty in the acts of the cosmos. Only hope." The dialogue hung in the air, a thin veil separating us from the unknown. Eleanor interjected, a subtle quiver in her voice that none could ignore. "I've lived my years, seen wonders beyond measure. If our end can bring about a greater good, should we not consider it?" The question lingered, heavy as a star about to collapse into a black hole. We sat in a circle, the device at the center, a silent participant in our council. We spoke of life and loss, of the worlds we'd touched and the marks we'd left. The conversation was a river, winding through the landscape of our shared experiences, spilling over with the memories of 1,000 sunsets on 1,000 different horizons. As the sun climbed higher, a revelation unfurled like the petals of a cosmic flower. Alaric, his face a mask of reluctant awe, spoke of an ancient ritual, one that could harness the energies of the wormhole without the need for a sacrifice. "It is a path fraught with peril," he warned. "The fabric of reality itself could tear apart." Zara's eyes blazed with the fire of a new dawn. "Then that's our answer. We'll walk this razor's edge between existence and oblivion. We didn't come this far to give up now." Eleanor nodded, the decision etching itself into the lines of her face. "We are the guardians of the infinite thread, the keepers of the cosmic loom. We will see this through, together." With commitment as our newfound ally, we stood, joining hands around the device. The ritual began, a dance of energy and light that swirled around us, enveloping us in the potential of what might be. The device thrummed, resonating with the power of the ritual, and for a moment it seemed as though the universe held its breath. Then, with a burst of light that rivaled the birth of stars, the ritual completed, the prophecy fulfilled without the toll of our lives. We stood, unscathed, the people of this world cheering their salvation, their joy a melody that harmonized with the song of our hearts. As the celebration swelled around us, Eleanor turned to me, her eyes reflecting the journey we'd undertaken. "Our travels have shown us the fragility of existence," she said, her voice a whisper amid the exultation. "But today, we've proven that the will to endure, to persevere, can alter the course of destiny itself." With our fates entwined with the destiny of worlds, we stepped once more into the unknown, the wormhole closing behind us, leaving behind a legacy of hope, a testament to the power of unity over the abyss of sacrifice. Chapter 11, The Choice. Zara, ever the embodiment of strength and agility, surveyed the horizon with a mix of admiration and skepticism. "Max, I gotta say, this place looks like paradise. But we've seen enough to know looks can be deceiving." Eleanor, with her historian's heart, nodded in agreement. Utopia is a dream many have chased throughout history, yet often it is just that, a dream. It was then that the entity made itself known, a being of light and energy that spoke with a voice that resonated like a melody. Max Mason, you have traversed the fabric of the multiverse, seeking what you have lost. Here you may find a new purpose, a respite from your endless journey. Will you stay and embrace change? The offer hung in the air, a tempting fruit on the bough of a tree I had never dared climb. The thought of abandoning the chase, the constant leap from one world to the next, was both alluring and alarming. Zara turned to me, her blue eyes sharp. You can't seriously be considering this, Max. What about us? What about everything we've been through? Her words, direct and unwavering, struck a chord within me. I had always been the one they relied on, the one who held the key to our path forward, the wormhole device that clung to my side like a faithful companion. Eleanor chimed in, her voice soft but firm. Max, we've faced challenges and dangers aplenty, but each step, each leap has brought us closer to understanding the true impact of our travels. We are intertwined with the fate of the multiverse, for better or worse. I faced the entity, my endurance hardening like steel, tempered in the fires of trial and tribulation. Your offer is generous, but my place is with my companions, with the journey that is far from over. We have a responsibility, one that extends beyond the allure of utopia. The entity regarded me, an unspoken respect in its shimmering presence. You are not the first to face this choice, Max Mason. Kane, like you, is a traveler, but he has chosen a darker path, seeking dominion over the multiverse rather than enlightenment. The revelation struck like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the shadows that Kane had cast across our journey. It was a sobering moment, a recognition of the thin line we tread between discovery and domination. Zara placed a hand on my shoulder, a silent show of solidarity. We're in this together, Max. No paradise can replace the bonds we've forged. Eleanor smiled, the corners of her eyes crinkling with a wisdom that transcended the ages. The true measure of a journey is not in its end, but in the hearts and minds it changes along the way. With a newfound clarity, I turned to the entity. We thank you for the respite, for the choice, but our path continues onward, through the threads of infinity, unraveled but not unbound. The entity bowed, a gesture of respect that transcended language and form. Then go forth, Max Mason, with your companions. May the light of knowledge guide you, and may you find the strength to resist the temptations of power. Stepping back into the wormhole's embrace, we left the utopian dimension behind, carrying with us the lessons of every world we had touched. Our journey was far from over, and together we would face whatever lay beyond the next leap, our endurance unshaken, our purpose clear. Chapter 12, The Final Confrontation. We've come too far to falter now, I said, the wormhole device in my hands feeling heavier than ever. Zara's robotic arm whirred softly, a comforting sound amidst the ominous rumbling from the breaches. You said it, Max. Kane's gone too far, and we're the ones to stop him. Eleanor, her digital notebook clutched tightly, nodded solemnly. The multiverse hangs in the balance. It's time to mend what's been torn asunder. The air crackled with energy as Kane and his band of mercenaries emerged from the chaos, their weapons drawn and their intentions clear. The man himself, Victor Kane, stood at the forefront, his presence like a dark cloud over the battlefield. So, Max, he bellowed across the divide, you've brought your little band to challenge me. I must admit, I'm impressed you made it this far. Your reign of terror ends here, Kane. I shouted back, my grip on the wormhole device tightening. Kane's laugh was a harsh sound that cut through the tension. Oh, but you don't understand, do you? You and I were cut from the same cloth. The wormhole device, it was born from our shared past, from the work we did together before you decided to play the hero. The revelation hit like a meteor strike, sending shockwaves through my mind. Memories, long buried beneath the myriad leaps through the multiverse, clawed their way to the surface. It's true then, Eleanor murmured, her voice a mix of horror and fascination. The paths we choose define us, but we cannot escape our history. Zara clenched her fist, her stance unwavering. Doesn't matter what was, Kane. It's what we do now that counts. And we're shutting you down. The showdown began as Kane's mercenaries charged, their boots thundering on the broken ground. Zara met them head-on, her robotic arm a blur as she deflected their attacks with precision and grace. Eleanor, with a historian's understanding of strategy, directed our movements, her words cutting through the clamor of battle. "Max, the device. Use it to seal the breaches." I nodded, understanding the monumental task at hand. I activated the wormhole device, its familiar hum a pharos of hope as I focused its energy on the nearest breach. A beam of pure light shot forth, stitching the tear in reality closed as if weaving a patch onto torn fabric. Kane, seeing his advantage slip away, roared in defiance. "You think you can stop me? I am the master of the multiverse." But as each breach sealed, his power waned, the forces at his command dwindling with every restored piece of the world. Zara, grappling with a mercenary twice her size, threw him aside with a triumphant cry. "You're yesterday's news, Kane." Eleanor's voice rose above the fray, steady and sure. "We are the guardians of destiny, shaping the future with the courage of our convictions." As the final breach sealed, the sky cleared, revealing the stars that had been obscured by the dimensional turmoil. Kane, beaten and alone, fell to his knees, his dream of conquest crumbling around him. We stood victorious, the wormhole device now silent in my hands. Kane looked up, his eyes meeting mine. "You could have been a god," he whispered. I shook my head, helping him to his feet. "I choose to be a man instead, one who stands with his friends to protect the worlds we call home." As we turned to leave the battlefield, the wormhole device a silent sentinel at my side, a sense of peace settled over us. We had faced our final confrontation and emerged not just unscathed, but stronger for it, our bonds unbreakable, our firmness unyielding. The multiverse was safe, for now, and as we leaped into the next adventure, we carried with us the knowledge that our choices, our sacrifices, had made all the difference. Chapter 13, A Fractured Reality. We won. Eleanor's voice cut through the silence that had fallen like a shroud over the scarred landscape. But at what cost? The reality around us is coming undone. Zara paced, her robotic arm clicking with each movement. "We can't just stand here and watch the world fall apart, Max. There's got to be something we can do." I turned the device over in my hands, its once vibrant lights now dim, the silver casing cold and lifeless. I think I know how to fix this, but it's not without sacrifice." Their gazes met mine, and in their eyes I saw the unspoken question. They knew what I was considering. The device had been our lifeline, our only means of navigating the unpredictable tides of the multiverse. "You're talking about destroying it, aren't you?" Zara's voice was steady, but I heard the underlying note of desperation. Eleanor stepped forward, her digital notebook clasped to her chest. "Max, think this through. If you do this, we might never make it home." Home. The word resonated within me, a distant melody from a forgotten song. The device had been our compass and anchor through countless leaps, but now it threatened to be our undoing. "The multiverse is bigger than us," I said, a backbone settling over me like armor. "If we let these ruptures spread, there won't be a home to return to, for anyone." Zara stopped her pacing and stood firm, her blue eyes locked on mine, her mechanical fingers still. "Then we do it, better lost than the cause of total collapse." Eleanor closed her eyes for a moment, a silent farewell to the countless worlds and histories she had chronicled. When she opened them again, her decision was clear. "Do it, Max. Restore the balance." With a heavy heart, I raised the device, its surface reflecting the fractured sky above. I focused my thoughts, recalling the energy patterns and equations that had been the heartbeat of our journey. A soft glow began to emanate from the device, a farewell song as I prepared to unmake what I had created. The glow intensified, and the air vibrated with the power of 1,000 suns being born and dying in the same breath. Then, with a rush of light and a sound like the universe exhaling, the device shattered, its pieces dissolving into motes of light that danced upwards, stitching the tears in reality back together. As the fractures healed, the landscape around us began to stabilize, but the cost was immediate and harsh. The backlash from the device's destruction sent each of us spiraling away from one another, caught in the currents of raw, untamed space-time. Zara's figure grew distant, her outline blurring, and Eleanor's wise form faded like a wisp of smoke on the wind. I reached out, but the forces that pulled us apart were inexorable. Our paths diverged, cast into the vastness of the multiverse. Silence enveloped me, a profound stillness that spoke of the end of one journey and the beginning of another. The device was gone, but its legacy would live on in the worlds it had touched and the lives it had changed. As I drifted, alone but resolute, I knew that the threads of infinity were still unraveling, and our story was far from over. There were new paths to forge, new destinies to meet, and somewhere, in the vast oddment of existence, I would find my friends again. For now I embraced the change, letting the currents take me where they may, my spirit unbroken, my will unbowed. The final confrontation was behind us, but the adventure would continue, in this dimension or the next. Chapter 14, Desperate Measures. I found myself in what seemed like a city, but it was one that defied all logic. Buildings from different ages and styles were jumbled together, a skyscraper next to a thatched hut, a Victorian mansion fused to a steel and glass modern office. This was a reality where the threads of different worlds had been woven into a chaotic oddment. "All right, Max, think," I murmured to myself. "There's got to be a way to fix this." As I walked through the disordered streets, dodging the occasional rift that would appear out of nowhere, spewing forth objects or sometimes creatures from other places, other times, I knew I had to find Zara and Eleanor. "Zara!" I shouted, hoping she was nearby, that she could hear me. "Eleanor!" My calls seemed to be swallowed by the patchwork city, leaving no echo, no sign that my voice had carried any distance at all. It was then that I stumbled upon a market square, where people of various appearances and attire bartered and argued over goods that were as mixed up as the city itself. A burly man, his clothes a mishmash of medieval armor and futuristic fabrics, approached me with a wary look in his eyes. "You look lost, friend," he said, his voice rough with the accent of a place I couldn't place. "I am," I admitted. "I'm trying to find my friends, my crew. We got separated." He nodded, understanding my plight. "This place, it's a mess. Realities clashing, merging, dangerous. You'll want to be careful." I spent what felt like hours navigating the chaotic streets, asking after Zara and Eleanor, but no one had seen them. It was as if we had been scattered across different corners of this fragmented world. Just when despair started to nibble at the edges of my resolve, I heard a familiar voice, a raspy yet commanding tone that could only belong to Zara. "Max!" she called out, her figure emerging from the crowd in the market square. She looked different, her hair now streaked with colors that seemed to shift in the sunlight, her robotic arm adorned with unfamiliar symbols and gears. "Zara!" Relief flooded through me at the sight of her. "I've been looking everywhere for you. Have you seen Eleanor?" She shook her head, her face grim. No sign of her yet. "But Max, I found something, pieces of your research, fragments of the work you did before all this." My pulse quickened at the mention of my research. "Where? Show me." Zara led me to a small alcove tucked away between a medieval blacksmith's shop and a sleek, neon-lit arcade. There, scattered on a makeshift table, were papers and artifacts that bore the unmistakable mark of my earlier experiments with wormhole technology. "This could be our chance," I said, my mind racing with possibilities. "If I can piece this together, maybe we can stabilize this place, find Eleanor, and stop whatever's causing these rifts." Zara's eyes met mine, a fire burning within them. "Let's get to work then. We've faced down every challenge the multiverse has thrown at us. We're not going to let this beat us." We set to work, surrounded by the patchwork reality of a world held together by hope and determination. As we pieced together the remnants of my past work, the foundation for a new challenge was laid. We would find Eleanor, we would confront the new threats, and we would restore order to the multiverse. The dream was not dead, not while we still had the will to fight, to think, to dream. Chapter 15, The Ideals War. Zara was at my side, her stance as solid as the steel of her robotic arm. Across this strange expanse, where the air itself seemed to crackle with the energy of colliding ideals, stood Kane, flanked by his forces, a legion bent on imposing a singular, constraining reality upon the fabric of existence. "Max," Zara said, her voice a low rasp that carried the weight of our shared trials. "This is it, the Ideals War. We're not just fighting Kane, we're fighting for the freedom of every world, every thread of this great oddment." "We stand united, Z," I replied, my eyes scanning the horizon where the forces of the fractured dimensions were assembling, an alliance of the free, rallied by our call. Kane's vision ends today. The air shimmered, and Eleanor appeared, her presence a torch of wisdom amid the gathering storm. "Together," she said, her words wrapping around us like a shield. We represent more than just a resistance. We are the promise of a future unbound by tyranny. Kane's voice boomed across the divide, filled with the arrogance of unchecked power. You think you can defy me? I am the harbinger of order, the architect of a unified multiverse. We defy not only you, Kane, but the very notion that one man can dictate the destiny of all, I shouted back, my words carrying the conviction of countless worlds yearning to breathe free. The battle erupted, a discord of light and sound that stretched across the cosmos. Zara leaped into the fray, her movements a symphony of precision and power, her robotic arm a whirlwind of defiance. Eleanor, with her profound knowledge, directed our allies, her strategies outwitting Kane's forces at every turn. We will not yield. I heard myself cry out as I joined the battle, the strength of my commitment lending power to my limbs. Around us, the alliance of dimensions fought with a ferocity born of the desire for freedom, their myriad voices rising in a chorus of opposition against Kane's monochrome dream. The clash of ideologies was more than a mere skirmish. It was a war for the very essence of reality. Every strike, every parry was a statement, a declaration that the future would not be cast in the shadow of a single will. As the tide turned, the unity of our purpose began to shine through the discord. Kane's forces faltered, his vision unraveling before the indomitable spirit of a multiverse united. In the end, as the dust settled and silence reclaimed the battleground, Kane stood alone, his empire of control reduced to a memory. We approached, not as conquerors, but as harbingers of a new era. Kane, I said, my voice steady and sure, you sought to be the master of the multiverse. But it's not one man's to command. It belongs to all who traverse its endless paths, to all who dream of what could be. Defeated, Kane vanished into the void, his final gambit spent. We, the champions of diversity, of possibility, stood victorious, not over a fallen enemy, but over the narrow confines of a singular ideal. The alliance dispersed, each member returning to their respective dimensions, carrying with them the spark of a shared victory, the knowledge that together they could shape the destiny of the cosmos. As for us, Zara, Eleanor, and I, we knew our journey was not at an end. There were new worlds to discover, new alliances to forge, and new dreams to dream. The threads of infinity, once unraveled, now wove a new pattern, one of change and boundless potential. We embraced this change, ready to unlock the untold possibilities that lay within the vast, star-strewn expanse of the multiverse. And with hearts full of hope, we stepped forward into the unknown, our eyes wide open to the wonders that awaited. Our shared story comes to a close. We thank you for experiencing Threads of Infinity Unraveled alongside us. Let StoryWave.ai continue to weave stories from your imagination by supporting us with a like, share, and subscription. Join us for more narrative voyages daily, March 2024, till we meet again.